The Arcadia Peace Station hung like a massive decagonal jewel against the backdrop of stars, its 10 wings stretching outward from the central hub like the petals of an enormous flower. Each wing represented one of the 10 species gathered for what was being hailed as the most important diplomatic summit in galactic history. The subtle blue glow of its shield generators pulsed rhythmically, matching the artificial day-night cycle maintained within. Ambassador Lena Ortiz of Earth stood at the viewport in the human quarter, her dark eyes reflecting the distant sparkle of her home planet. At 42, she carried herself with the poised confidence of someone who had navigated complex diplomatic waters for over 15 years. Her close-cropped, silver-streaked black hair and the simple but elegant cut of her Navy diplomatic uniform projected an image of professionalism, though the slight furrow between her brows betrayed her concern. "First impressions?" asked Arjun Patel, her technical assistant, as he approached with a holographic datapad. At 30, Arjun was relatively young for his position, but his brilliance with data analysis and pattern recognition had made him invaluable to Lena's team. "Cautious," Lena replied, turning from the viewport. "I've been to 17 interspecies summits, but the atmosphere here feels rehearsed. Everyone's too polite, too careful." Arjun nodded. "I noticed the same during the welcome reception. The Varkon delegation barely acknowledged the Threll, yet their trade disputes are supposedly what brought us all here." Lena sighed, moving toward the central table where holographic profiles of the attending species floated above its surface. 400 years since humans first settled Jupiter's moons, and we're still the newcomers at this table. She waved her hand through the projected image of a tall, muscular humanoid with ridged skin and amber eyes. General Kalor of the Varkan hegemony. They claim ancestral rights to the light crystal system and its rare minerals. Moving to another projection, a willowy, blue-skinned being with large, lidless eyes, she continued. The Aquari Collective disputes this based on ecological impact. Their oceanic homeworlds depend on the unique radiation patterns from those crystals for their reproductive cycles. Her hand passed through a third image. This one showing a short, broad-shouldered being with an exoskeleton-like covering. And the Threll Confederation accuses both of violating their sovereign space during previous exploration missions. Arjun set his datapad on the table, bringing up additional information. 7 other species with their own stakes, grievances, and alliances. The Arcadia Accords are supposed to establish lasting peace and resource-sharing protocols for the next century. Lena's reply was interrupted by a soft chime from her personal communicator. She frowned, recognizing the encrypted signal from Earth Command. "I need to take this privately." In her quarters, the holographic projection of Admiral Zhang appeared, his expression grave. "Ambassador Ortiz, we have new intelligence that changes your mission parameters." Lena stood straighter. "Sir?" "The light crystal system contains significantly more mineral quintessium than previously reported. Earth needs exclusive access to at least 30% of those resources to maintain our defensive capabilities against potential Varkon expansion." Lena felt her stomach tighten. "Admiral, my briefing indicated we were pursuing equitable distribution." "That was before this intelligence came to light." The Admiral's tone left no room for debate. "You are to align with either the Aquari or the Threll, whichever proves more amenable to block Varkon claims. We've prepared dossiers on potential leverage points for both species." "Sir, with respect, that would undermine the entire purpose of these negotiations." "Your purpose, Ambassador, is to secure Earth's interests." The Admiral's holographic eyes narrowed. "The Security Council has authorized whatever diplomatic methods necessary. We cannot allow the Varkon to control those resources." After the Admiral's image faded, Lena remained motionless, the weight of her new orders pressing down on her. This wasn't diplomacy. It was manipulation at best, sabotage at worst. And yet, Earth's security couldn't be dismissed lightly. The Varkon hegemony had been expanding steadily for decades, absorbing smaller systems through what they called protective incorporation. She returned to the main room where Arjun waited, his expression curious. "New orders?" he asked. Lena nodded, choosing her words carefully. "Earth Command wants us to be more strategic in our approach." The knowing look in Arjun's eyes suggested he understood the subtext. He'd been with her long enough to recognize when military objectives were overriding diplomatic ones. "The preliminary session begins in an hour," he reminded her. "The Arcadia AI just sent the official agenda." "Let's review it," Lena said, pushing her moral quandary aside for the moment. "I want to understand exactly what we're walking into." The central chamber of Arcadia Station was a marvel of interspecies design. The circular room featured 10 distinct seating sections, each subtly tailored to the physiological needs of its occupants while maintaining a sense of equality. The center held a massive holographic projection system capable of rendering data in formats perceptible to all 10 species' sensory systems. Lena settled into the Earth section, noting how the Varkon and Threll delegations were positioned on opposite sides of the chamber, a deliberate choice by the station's AI to minimize direct confrontation. The Aquari, with their need for higher humidity, had environmental field generators creating a subtle mist around their delegation. The ceremonial opening proceeded with practiced precision. Each species representative spoke briefly about hopes for cooperation and lasting peace. When it was Lena's turn, she delivered Earth's prepared statement with all the sincerity she could muster, despite the conflicting directives now complicating her mission. The actual negotiations began the following day. Lena watched with growing unease as the sessions fell into predictable patterns. General Kahlor would assert Varkon claims to the light crystal system based on historical exploration records. The Aquari representative, Dr. Morena, would counter with environmental impact projections. The Threll delegate would then raise sovereignty violations. Other species would align with one position or another, creating shifting coalitions that somehow never quite reached resolution. By the fourth day, Lena found herself in her quarters reviewing session recordings with Arjun late into the night cycle. "Something isn't right," Arjun said, manipulating the holographic timeline of the day's debates. "Watch this exchange between the Varkon and the Threll." The projection showed General Kahlor rising to his impressive height, voice resonant with controlled aggression. "The hegemony has maintained exploration outposts in the outer reaches of the light crystal system for 73 cycles. Our claim predates any Threll presence." The Threll representative, a female named Grix, responded with practiced indignation, her exoskeleton plates flaring slightly. "Those outposts repeatedly violated Confederation boundaries established in the Proxima Treaty. We have documented 17 incursions." Arjun paused the recording. "Now watch this same exchange from 2 days ago." In the earlier recording, the wording was different, but the substance and emotional tenor were nearly identical. "It's like they're following a script," Lena murmured. "Exactly," Arjun said, excitement edging his voice. "I've analyzed the negotiation patterns. The arguments cycle through the same points with minor variations, but they never progress toward actual resolution." Lena felt a chill. "You think the negotiations are deliberately designed to fail? Or to create the appearance of negotiation while some other agenda plays out?" Arjun pulled up additional data. "I've been monitoring station communications. There's a surprising amount of encrypted traffic between supposedly opposing delegations during off hours." "Can you decrypt it?" Arjun shook his head. "Not without violating about 15 diplomatic protocols. But I've analyzed metadata patterns. There are regular communications between members of all 10 delegations that don't appear on any official schedule." Lena paced the room, mind racing. "If the negotiations are theater, what's the real game?" She stopped suddenly. "The resource distribution. Earth isn't the only power that wants control of the light crystal system." "But why the elaborate charade?" Arjun asked. Because open conflict would be costly and unpopular, Lena replied, the pieces falling into place. If negotiations regrettably fail after weeks of sincere effort, each government can justify military or economic action to their populations. Arjun looked troubled. Including Earth? Lena didn't answer immediately. Admiral Zhang's orders now appeared in an even more disturbing light. Was Earth Command aware of this deception? Were they participants? We need proof, she finally said. Without hard evidence. These are just theories. I might have something, Arjun said hesitantly. I've been developing a financial analysis algorithm that tracks resource allocation and military expenditures across governmental systems. It's designed to identify patterns that might predict conflict zones. And I've been feeding it public data from all 10 species represented here. There's an unusual correlation between diplomatic failures and increased weapons manufacturing across multiple systems. The algorithm suggests preparation for coordinated military action, not the random fluctuations you'd expect from genuinely independent actors. Lena felt both vindicated and dismayed. Show me everything. For the next several days, Lena maintained her official role in the increasingly circular negotiations while secretly working with Arjun to gather more evidence. She initiated private conversations with delegates from several species, carefully probing for inconsistencies or signs of the hidden agenda they suspected. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly, during a seemingly casual conversation with Dr. Morena of the Aquari. The Aquari scientist had approached Lena in one of the station's communal gardens, a rare moment away from the formal negotiation chambers. Morena's large, expressive eyes seemed troubled, the bioluminescent patterns beneath her blue skin pulsing in what Lena had learned to recognize as a sign of internal conflict. Ambassador Ortiz, Morena began, her voice melodic despite the translation device. I have reviewed your presentation on sustainable crystal harvesting. Your concerns about radiation leakage effects on nearby systems showed unusual consideration for non-human biospheres. Lena recognized the opening for what it was, a tentative extension of trust. The ecological balance of the light crystal system affects all our worlds. Dr. Morena, disruption would eventually reach Earth's colonies as well. Morena's gill structures fluttered slightly, the Aquari equivalent of a contemplative sigh. My research team has compiled extensive data on the symbiotic relationships within the system. The crystals aren't merely resources to be harvested. They're part of a complex ecological network. Disruption could cascade through dozens of connected systems. Would you be willing to share that research? Lena asked carefully. Officially, I am instructed to withhold specific data points to maintain our negotiating position. Morena paused, the luminescence patterns shifting to a deeper blue. Unofficially, I find myself increasingly troubled by certain inconsistencies in our collective approach to these negotiations. It was as close to an admission of doubt as Lena could hope for. Perhaps we could compare notes on these inconsistencies. Scientific minds value accuracy, after all. That conversation led to a clandestine exchange of data. Morena provided ecological surveys that had been deliberately withheld from the general negotiations, and Lena shared Arjun's pattern analysis. Together, they began piecing together a disturbing picture. The ecological impact reports being presented publicly had been sanitized, minimizing the catastrophic consequences that would result from the kind of military conflict that seemed increasingly inevitable. 2 weeks into the negotiations, with the proceedings still moving in well-rehearsed circles, Lena received another encrypted communication from Earth Command. Admiral Zhang's message was brief and direct. Threll alignment secured with defense contract incentives. Proceed with coalition against Varkon claims. Authorization for limited technology transfer approved. The message confirmed her worst fears. Earth wasn't just falling into a trap. It was actively participating in the charade. The defense contract incentives could only mean one thing: Earth weapons manufacturers had secured deals with the Threll, regardless of how the negotiations concluded. That night, Lena made her decision. "We're going off script," she told Arjun, who had been working tirelessly to compile and analyze the growing mountain of evidence. "I need a comprehensive financial and technological data presentation, ready by tomorrow's plenary session." Arjun looked startled. "Earth Command hasn't authorized—" "Earth Command is part of the problem," Lena said firmly. "I was sent here to secure peace, not to facilitate a resource war that would benefit weapons contractors." "This could end your career," Arjun warned, though his expression showed his support. "Then it ends," Lena replied simply. "But I won't be complicit in this deception." Together, they worked through the night, integrating Dr. Morena's ecological data with Arjun's financial analysis and adding information from other sources they'd cultivated. The resulting presentation was damning, clear evidence of coordinated military buildup across all 10 species, financial transactions between supposedly adversarial powers, and projected ecological devastation that would affect hundreds of worlds, not just those in the light crystal system. The next morning, as delegates gathered for what promised to be another day of carefully orchestrated disagreement, Lena requested an unscheduled intervention. The unusual break from protocol created a stir among the delegations. "The chair recognizes Ambassador Ortiz of Earth," announced the station's AI, its neutral voice betraying no opinion on the deviation from the agenda. Lena stood, her heart pounding, but her resolve firm. "Distinguished delegates, for 2 weeks we have engaged in what appears to be earnest negotiation over the future of the light crystal system. We have exchanged proposals, voiced concerns, and professed dedication to peaceful resolution." She activated her data transfer, sending the access codes for her presentation to the central holographic system. "However, I believe it is time we acknowledge the true nature of these proceedings." The chamber erupted in objections, most vociferously from General Kahlor of the Varkon delegation. "This is an outrageous breach of protocol. The human has no authority to unilaterally alter our agenda." "I'm not altering the agenda, General," Lena replied calmly. "I'm exposing it." With a gesture, she activated the holographic display. The chamber filled with a 3-dimensional web of financial transactions, weapons development programs, and military deployment plans, all correlated with the diplomatic posturing of the past 2 weeks. "What you are seeing," Lena continued over the growing murmurs, "is the real negotiation, one conducted not in this chamber, but through encrypted channels, corporate proxies, and military planning rooms." The display shifted to highlight a particular network of connections. "This is what my analyst has identified as the Silent Arms Consortium, an interspecies conglomerate of weapons manufacturers and military technology developers. Over the past 5 years, this consortium has seen profits increase by an average of 37%, following each failed peace negotiation between any combination of our governments." The holographic display zoomed in on specific transactions. Here we see technology transfers from Varkon military suppliers to Threll defense contractors, conducted through shell corporations, just days before both governments issued statements condemning each other's aggression in the light crystal system. More data points illuminated. Similar patterns exist between all 10 species represented in this chamber. We are not adversaries. We are business partners in an enterprise of controlled conflict, one that generates tremendous profit for a select few while preparing for a resource war that will devastate hundreds of worlds. The chamber had fallen silent, the delegates staring at the evidence floating before them. Some faces showed shock, others guilt, and a few, Lena noted with concern, calculated anger. "Ambassador Ortiz." General Kahlor's voice cut through the silence, his tone dangerous. "You make serious accusations without considering the consequences. Earth is the newest power at this table. Perhaps you should reflect on your species' vulnerable position before alienating potential allies." The threat was unmistakable. But Lena stood her ground. "I have considered the consequences, General, both of speaking and of remaining silent." She gestured toward the ecological data now displaying. "This section represents Dr. Morena's complete research on the light crystal system's ecological network, research that has been deliberately suppressed." Morena rose from the inquiry section, her luminescence patterns pulsing rapidly in what Lena recognized as a sign of agitation. "The ambassador speaks truth. The data I was instructed to present officially represents less than 30% of our actual findings. The crystal formations are not merely mineral deposits. They are semi-organic structures that regulate energy flow through 17 connected star systems." The holographic display shifted to show a simulation of cascading ecological collapse. "This is the projected outcome of even limited military engagement in the system," Morena continued. "Not resource redistribution, systemic collapse that would affect all our worlds, regardless of who controls the crystals afterward." General Kahlor's ridged skin darkened with anger. "This is Aquari propaganda. Their species has always exaggerated environmental concerns to limit hegemony expansion." "The data has been independently verified," Lena countered, "by scientists from 4 species, including your own. I've included their suppressed reports in this presentation." She drew a deep breath. "But the ecological disaster is only part of the deception. The greater betrayal is this: peace was never the objective of these negotiations." She highlighted a new section of the data web. "These are communication patterns between our delegations during the past 2 weeks. While we publicly maintained positions of principled disagreement, our governments were finalizing weapons contracts, military alliances, and resource extraction plans that assume the failure of these very negotiations." The Threll representative, Grix, rose, her exoskeletal plates clicking in agitation. "These are internal security matters. You have no right." "I have every right," Lena interrupted, her voice gaining strength. "Because the charade we're participating in will cost billions of lives. We pretend to seek peace while preparing for war, a war that some among us have already determined is inevitable, even desirable." She faced the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegation leader. "I was sent here with instructions to manipulate these proceedings for Earth's advantage, to secure alliances that would position us favorably when the negotiations inevitably collapsed. I suspect each of you received similar instructions from your governments." The lack of immediate denial confirmed her suspicion. Lena continued, "We have been performing a diplomatic pantomime, following a script written by those who profit from conflict while pretending to pursue peace." She paused, then made the decision that she knew would change everything. "As of this moment, Earth withdraws from these fraudulent negotiations. We will not participate in nor legitimize this process any longer." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions, demands, and threats. The station's AI attempted to restore order, its neutral voice nearly drowned out by the commotion. General Kahlor's voice rose above the others. "This is unprecedented. A single delegation cannot simply withdraw from the Arcadia Accords." "Watch me," Lena replied, her quiet determination somehow cutting through the noise. "Earth came here in good faith to establish lasting peace. What we found instead was a sophisticated mechanism for justifying inevitable conflict. I will not be part of that deception." She turned to Arjun, who stood ready beside their delegation station. "Transfer the complete data package to all delegations and to their civilian scientific communities. Include the unredacted financial trails." "This is an act of diplomatic aggression," shouted the representative from the Keth Dominion, a species known for their rigid adherence to hierarchy and protocol. "No," Lena responded calmly. "This is an act of transparency. The aggression was planned in the encrypted communications you thought would remain secret." She addressed the entire chamber once more. I invite any delegation that genuinely seeks peace to join Earth in withdrawing from this charade and establishing a new forum, one committed to actual negotiation rather than the performance of it. For several tense moments, no one moved. Then, slowly, Dr. Marina rose from her seat. The Aquari Collective stands with Earth. We too withdraw from these proceedings. One by one, other delegations began to stir. The Novan representative, a crystalline being whose thoughts were expressed through patterns of light, signaled agreement. The Alassi, insectoid creatures, known for their pragmatic approach to interspecies relations, followed suit. General Kalor watched with barely contained fury as half the chamber aligned with Lena's position. You will regret this breach of protocol, Ambassador Ortiz. The hegemony does not forget those who interfere with its rightful expansions. Nor does Earth forget those who choose honesty over deception. General, Lena replied evenly. Your threats only validate our decision. With that, she gathered her materials and walked toward the exit, Arjun at her side. The other withdrawing delegates followed, leaving the chamber divided, physically and ideologically. In the corridor outside, representatives from 5 species gathered around Lena, their expressions ranging from uncertainty to cautious hope. What now, Ambassador? Asked the Novan delegate, their crystalline form refracting the corridor lights into dazzling patterns. We have taken an unprecedented step, but without a framework for continued negotiation, chaos may follow. Lena had asked herself the same question throughout the sleepless night before her intervention. Now we create something new, negotiations based on actual needs and verifiable data, not predetermined outcomes and hidden agendas. Dr. Morena stepped forward, her bioluminescence patterns calmer now. The Aquari maintain a research station in neutral space, beyond the immediate vicinity of the light crystal system, but close enough for accurate observation. It could serve as a temporary meeting location, away from the influences that have compromised Arcadia Station. Honesty Summit, suggested the Alassi representative, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. No encrypted side channels, no military attachés, no corporate representatives, only primary negotiators with the authority to forge genuine agreements. The idea spread quickly among the gathered delegates, gaining momentum and detail. Lena felt a cautious optimism beginning to replace the tension that had driven her actions. This wasn't how she had expected the mission to unfold. But perhaps it was the breakthrough the interstellar community needed. As the impromptu planning session continued, Lena's personal communicator chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Zhang's holographic form appeared, his expression thunderous. Ambassador Ortiz, you have exceeded your authority and violated direct orders. Your actions have compromised Earth's strategic position and potentially endangered our colonies in the outer systems. You are hereby relieved of your position, effective immediately. Your deputy will assume. With respect, Admiral. Lena interrupted, something she would never have dared before today. I am currently engaged in establishing a new peace framework with representatives from 5 species. Transferring authority now would jeopardize the progress we've made. I suggest you review the data package I've transmitted before making personnel decisions that could affect billions of lives. Zhang's holographic eyes narrowed. This is insubordination. Ortiz. This is diplomacy. Admiral. Real diplomacy. Not the theater we've been performing. Lena held his gaze steadily. 5 species have withdrawn from the corrupted Arcadia negotiations and are prepared to establish genuine peace accords. If Earth recalls its representative now, we lose our place at that table and our influence over the future of the light crystal system. The strategic implications weren't lost on Zhang. After a moment of tense silence, he said, You have 24 hours to demonstrate tangible progress towards securing Earth's interests. After that, we reevaluate your position. It wasn't support, But it was time, and time was what they needed most right now. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of activity. The withdrawing delegations relocated to a neutral section of Arcadia Station, establishing what they called the Transparency Chamber, a makeshift negotiation space where all communications were conducted in the open, with no private channels permitted. Lena worked tirelessly, facilitating direct conversations between species that had been positioned as adversaries. Without the artificial constraints of the previous format, genuine concerns began to emerge, and with them, potential solutions. The Aquarii needed the crystal formation's unique radiation patterns preserved for their reproductive cycles. The Threll required guaranteed safe passage through portions of the system for their trade routes. The Novans sought protection for ancient monitoring outposts established by their ancestors millennia ago. Earth's primary concern, access to quintessium for defensive technology, was legitimate, but Lena presented it honestly, without the manipulation her original orders had demanded. To her surprise, once stated plainly, it proved less contentious than the hidden agenda had been. Defensive capabilities are a valid concern for any species, the Alassi representative acknowledged. The question is not whether Earth should have access to quintessium, but how that access can be balanced with other needs. By the time Admiral Zhang contacted her again, Lena had a preliminary framework for a resource-sharing agreement that addressed the core needs of all 5 species. It wasn't perfect, and many details remained to be negotiated, but it was genuine progress rooted in transparency rather than deception. Zhang's holographic expression remained stern, but she detected a reluctant reassessment in his eyes as she presented the framework. The Security Council is divided on your actions, Ortiz. Some call for your immediate court-martial. Others see potential in this unconventional approach. And you, Admiral? Zhang's jaw tightened. I follow orders, Ambassador. Currently, those orders are to allow this process to continue, with close monitoring. His tone made it clear this wasn't his personal preference. Be advised that the Varkhan hegemony has issued formal protests against Earth for what they term diplomatic sabotage. Their fleet movements near our Jupiter colonies have increased. They're posturing, Lena replied with more confidence than she felt. General Kahlor knows that any aggressive action now would only validate everything I revealed. Let's hope you're right. Zhang's hologram flickered. You have provisional authorization to continue these transparency negotiations. Regular updates are expected. The connection terminated, leaving Lena with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Earth Command hadn't fully embraced her approach, but they hadn't stopped it either. It was enough, for now. Over the following days, the situation evolved rapidly. The remaining delegations at the official Arcadia negotiations found themselves in an increasingly untenable position as details from Lena's data package spread throughout civilian networks across multiple systems. Public opinion began to shift, with populations demanding explanations from their governments about the revealed deceptions. 3 more species defected from the original negotiations to join the Transparency Chamber, leaving only the Varkhan hegemony and the Keth Dominion maintaining the official Arcadia process. General Kahlor made several attempts to discredit Lena and the breakaway negotiations, ranging from formal diplomatic protests to thinly veiled personal threats. When these failed to halt the momentum of the new peace process, he changed tactics, announcing that the Varkhan would consider joining the Transparency Chamber in the interest of comprehensive representation. It's a ploy, Arjun warned when the news reached them. He wants to infiltrate and undermine from within. Lena agreed, but saw an opportunity as well. We accept his participation, but on the same terms as everyone else. Complete transparency. No encrypted communications, no private meetings. He'll never agree, Dr. Morena predicted, her bioluminescence patterns conveying skepticism. Then his refusal becomes another point in our favor, Lena replied. Either way, We demonstrate our commitment to an open process. As predicted, General Kaylor balked at the conditions, particularly the ban on encrypted communications with his government. His public rejection, however, only strengthened the legitimacy of the Transparency Chamber in the eyes of citizens across multiple systems. 3 weeks after Lena's dramatic withdrawal from the Arcadia negotiations, the Transparency Chamber relocated to the Aquarii Research Station as originally proposed. The neutral location, away from the compromised infrastructure of Arcadia, provided a fresh start for the process. The station, a modest structure compared to Arcadia's grandeur, offered limited luxury but unparalleled views of the light crystal system itself. Through the observation dome, delegates could see the crystalline formations that were the subject of their negotiations, delicate structures that glowed with internal light, their radiation patterns shifting in mesmerizing waves across the spectrum. "It's beautiful," Lena murmured, standing beside Dr. Morena in the dome. "I've seen holographic representations, but they don't capture the aliveness of it." "That's precisely what we've been trying to explain," Morena replied, her voice soft with emotion. "The formations aren't merely resources. They're semi-sentient ecological regulators. They respond to the energy needs of surrounding systems, adjusting radiation output accordingly." Lena watched the pulsing light patterns with new understanding. And military action in their vicinity would disrupt this regulation. Catastrophically. Morena's gill structures fluttered in distress. The cascading failures would affect star systems hundreds of light-years distant, including Earth's colonies. The realization deepened Lena's resolve. The peace they were working toward wasn't just about preventing immediate conflict. It was about preserving an interstellar ecological balance that benefited all species. The negotiations at the research station progressed with a different energy than those at Arcadia. Without the theatrical posturing and predetermined scripts, delegates spoke more directly about their actual needs and concerns. Disagreements still arose, sometimes heated ones, but they were genuine conflicts of interest rather than manufactured ones. Arjun continued his analysis work, but now in service of identifying sustainable solutions rather than exposing deceptions. His algorithms helped model resource distribution scenarios that could satisfy each species' core requirements while preserving the ecological integrity of the crystal formations. Earth Command maintained a cautious distance, neither fully endorsing Lena's approach nor recalling her. Admiral Zhang's communications became less frequent but more substantive, focusing on technical questions about resource access rather than diplomatic protocol violations. 6 weeks after leaving Arcadia, the 8 species participating in the Transparency Chamber reached a preliminary agreement. The light crystal system would be designated an interspecies ecological preserve, with strictly regulated access for scientific research and minimal resource extraction. A rotating oversight council would ensure compliance, with each species holding a seat regardless of their military or economic power. For Earth, the agreement guaranteed access to sufficient quintessium for defensive needs, but within harvesting limits that would preserve the crystal formation's ecological functions. It wasn't the exclusive control that Earth Command had originally sought, but it was sustainable and secure, and achieved without the devastating conflict that had seemed inevitable. The day before the formal signing ceremony, Lena received an unexpected visitor. General Kaylor requested a private meeting. Private, now, meaning recorded and transparent rather than secret. Curious and cautious. Lena agreed. The Varkhan general seemed diminished somehow. His imposing physique, still impressive, but his bearing less intimidating than it had been at Arcadia. "Ambassador Ortiz," he began without preamble. "The hegemony has authorized me to inform you that we will recognize the Transparency Accords." Lena kept her expression neutral, despite her surprise. "That's welcome news. General, may I ask what prompted this decision?" Kaylor's ridged skin darkened slightly. a sign of discomfort in Varkon physiology. Internal factors that are not relevant to these proceedings. Lena waited, saying nothing. After a moment, Kaylor continued reluctantly. Your data package reached beyond governmental channels. Certain revelations about the financial connections between hegemony military suppliers and off-world weapons developers have created domestic pressure for accountability. Understanding dawned. Your population learned about the Silent Arms Consortium. Among other things, Kaylor's amber eyes narrowed. You have disrupted power structures that took decades to establish. Ambassador. There are many who will not forget that. Is that a threat, General? An observation. Kaylor straightened, some of his former authority reasserting itself. The hegemony will send a representative to tomorrow's signing. We will not join the Oversight Council at this time, but will abide by the extraction limitations and ecological protocols. It was less than full participation, but more than Lena had expected. The council seat remains open, should the hegemony reconsider. Kaylor gave a curt nod and turned to leave, then paused. You could have used the information you gathered for Earth's advantage alone. Why risk everything for species not your own? Lena considered the question carefully. Because peace isn't a zero-sum game. General, true security comes from stable systems, where all participants' core needs are met, not from temporary advantage gained through others' loss. A naive perspective. Perhaps, Lena acknowledged, but one that's produced better results than centuries of calculated manipulation. Kaylor departed without further comment, leaving Lena with the sense that, while they might never be allies, a foundation for genuine dialogue had been established. The signing ceremony the following day was deliberately simple, lacking the pageantry that had characterized the opening of the Arcadia negotiations. 8 species, now 9, with the Varkon representative present, gathered in the research station's observation dome, the light crystal system providing a natural backdrop for their achievement. Each delegate spoke briefly, acknowledging both the challenges overcome and the work still ahead. When it was Lena's turn, she kept her remarks focused on the future, rather than the controversial path that had brought them to this point. The Transparency Accords represent more than an agreement on resource allocation, she said, looking around at the diverse beings gathered in the dome. They establish a new approach to interspecies relations, one based on verifiable facts, genuine needs, and sustainable solutions rather than strategic deception and manufactured conflict. She gestured toward the crystal formations, visible through the dome. Those formations will continue their ecological regulation for millennia to come, supporting life across dozens of star systems, because we chose a different path than the one laid out for us. May this be the first of many such choices. As the signing proceeded, Lena received a message from Earth Command. Admiral Zhang's communication was characteristically brief. Accords approved by Security Council. Your temporary diplomatic status regularized. Report to Earth for debriefing when proceedings conclude. It wasn't exactly a commendation, but given how drastically she had deviated from her original orders, it was more positive than she had dared hope for. Lena allowed herself a small smile as she added Earth's signature to the historic document. 3 months after the signing of the Transparency Accords, the interstellar situation had stabilized significantly. Military posturing near the light crystal system had decreased by 85%. The Silent Arms Consortium, exposed and under investigation by multiple governments, had seen its stock value plummet as weapons contracts based on anticipated conflict were canceled. Lena stood at the viewport of her transport vessel, watching Earth grow larger as they approached. After the debriefing on Earth, which promised to be intense, despite the official approval of the Accords, she would be reassigned. The diplomatic landscape had shifted, and her role in that shift meant she would never return to conventional ambassadorial duties. Arjun joined her at the viewport. Having second thoughts? Lena shook her head. No. Whatever comes next, we did the right thing. We've received 17 messages from various diplomatic services, asking if you'd consider consulting on their negotiation restructuring, Arjun said with a hint of pride. Apparently, transparency is becoming fashionable. Fashion fades, Lena replied. The question is whether the structural changes will endure. She thought about Dr. Marina, now heading the ecological monitoring team for the crystal formations, about General Kaylor, who had grudgingly acknowledged the benefits of the new extraction protocols, about the countless beings across multiple star systems whose lives would continue undisturbed by the war that had been averted. You know, Arjun said thoughtfully, when you stood up and walked out of that chamber on Arcadia, I wasn't sure anyone would follow. It could have ended very differently. It still might, Lena admitted. Peace is never permanent. But we've established a precedent for how it can be achieved, not through carefully choreographed deception, but through the courage to face uncomfortable truths. As Earth filled the viewport, its blue-white surface reflecting the light of its sun, Lena felt a sense of completion. One person standing up and walking away had changed the course of interstellar relations. It wasn't the dramatic action of heroes in ancient myths, but the simple refusal to participate in a damaging system, a small step that had opened the door for others to follow. The path ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time in decades, it led toward genuine cooperation rather than managed conflict. And that, Lena thought as her home planet welcomed her return, was worth whatever personal cost she might yet have to pay.